Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A very sobering start to the Christmas season. Righto, we'll go to item 8.1, which is the just reporting on the things that have been done, and you'll see that they're all completed, which is quite a good thing. Does anyone have any discussion about this, or shall I move the recommendation? I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Fletcher. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you very much for that. Now, 8.2 has got a little bit more interest in it. This is the direction on progressing the local board reorganisation for the 2028 elections. This came from a resolution last term to progress work and a recommendation from the Local Government Commission last term. But since we started this work, and I welcome the co-marteur of this stuff, Warwick, to the stage, who's been here since before half the council were born, and it's his last day. And but before we, since we started this work, the government have decided they don't want regional councillors, so they can change anything at the stroke of a pen. And last time we laboured greatly under the leadership of Councillor Ferry to achieve nothing whatsoever. And there's also a members' bill in the biscuit tin from Cameron Brewer to change the local board boundaries to match the ward boundaries. So I welcome Warwick and Rekka here. Personally, I think it's a complete, given that government's propensity to just change things at the drop of a hat, it's probably a waste of time, but some of you probably think it's worthwhile having a crack at. So I shall go with the flow on this one. But then round the view, Council, I know there are views from eradicating local boards completely to reducing their numbers, to staying as it is, to actually increasing them. So, believe it or not. So there you are. But I'm at the eradicating end of these. But there you go. Warwick, lead off in your last. Eh? Ready? Go. You should have it. No, let Warwick speak first, Rekka. Come on, the poor old bugger has been here for years.
Oh, just very briefly, Mr Mayor and Councillors, and thanks for your acknowledgement. This report doesn't really ask you to make any major decisions at this time. We were aware of the previous resolutions which were suggesting we look at local board reorganisation again. We contacted the Local Government Commission staff to ask them, well, what time frame would we be looking at? They said that if you want to exercise the option whereby we request them to undertake an investigation, they would need to receive that request by March, the end of March. We thought about the process for doing that, and we decided that it was probably not a good idea to go straight out to local boards first and get their feedback so that we could report it to you. We thought we should come to you first to get your mandate to start that process. So I was just asking for your directive to start a process whereby we report to you in March.
Good morning. My name is Rekka Kalu. I'm a Senior Advisor for Governance Projects in the Governance Programs and Policies Unit. And just a few words that it was an honor to work with Warwick McNaughton, Carol Hayward, and Maclean Grinder on this very report. And Warwick has spoiled a lot of things from this report, but why we are here today is to seek political direction from the governing body on whether staff should progress work on a potential local board reorganization, and specifically this time, whether to seek feedback from local boards to inform the governing body's major decisions in March. If the governing body agrees today to progress this work and seek local board feedback, the decisions to be made in March 2026 would be, first, whether to undertake a local board reorganization, and second, if so, which statutory pathway would be the preferred one. Why we are considering this now is that the Local Government Commission, in its 2025 determination, recommended that Auckland Council complete a local board reorganisation citing uneven and rapid population growth as the main driver. Besides that recommendation, the governing body passed a resolution to undertake a public consultation on a full local board reorganization proposal to implement for the 2028 local elections. There are different pathways that the local board reorganization to undertake. One is a council-led process, where the council develops, adapts a reorganization proposal, then consults and seek approvals under the Local Government Act 2002. And this is what we did last time. Another pathway is for the council to request the Local Government Commission to conduct an investigation that could lead to a reorganization. Staff have discussed timing with the Commission staff, who have advised that if the governing body wish to pursue an AGC-led investigation, then a formal request needs to be submitted by the end of March next year. That's why we are here today, because before initiating reporting and engagement work of that scale, staff considered appropriate to first seek a clear political mandate from the governing body. The purpose of this report, therefore, is to seek that mandate, to enable staff to prepare a more substantial report informed by local board feedback for the governing body's March meeting. If in March the governing body were to decide to request the Commission to undertake an investigation, the Council would need to clearly convey to the Commission the matters, the issues, and the problems or the opportunities that it wants to investigate. Staff would like to be clear that there is no statutory requirement to undertake a local board reorganization. However, Auckland, as the largest and most diverse city in New Zealand, has experienced rapid population growth over the past 15 years. That means 300,000 residents that significantly changed the communities that local boards serve. So over the same period, the local board structure has remained largely unchanged, even as the roles, the expectations, and responsibilities have continued to evolve. So a local board reorganization is the statutory mechanism available to consider whether Auckland's governance arrangements can better reflect these changes and continue to support good local government. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions? I've got one. If we don't do this, have you got anything useful to do?
Don't feel you need to answer that.
The answer is no. Councillor Fully.
Kia ora, thank you. You've answered one of my questions, which was that there is no statutory obligation for us to go ahead with a reorganisation different to a representation review, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. My other question is, when I've read the Local Government Commission's report, at paragraph 13, they talk about the rapid growth of Auckland. I checked recently, we are at 1.814 million now. Do you know what the projected population will be by 2028? I know that previously it was projected we'd reach 2 million by 2035, but if we're at 1.814 now, has that projection changed, or do you have any information on that?
No, we do not have at this moment, but we are happy to do some research on these projections.
Yes, please. And my next question is, given that the Commission has raised the issue of the rapid population growth, and we are seeing that ourselves and living that, is there a possibility, if we do go to a local government commission-led reorganisation investigation, that they may suggest to us that actually we need more local boards or more subdivisions within local boards, etc.?
Technically, this is possible, yes. If we go for a request where we do not propose any specific reorganization plan, then yes, it is.
And that was my next question. What would that look like if we do? Is it too early to ask that question? Are we likely to suggest something to the Local Government Commission, or will we just leave it up to them to make a free and frank investigation?
If the governing body decides to go for the LGC-led pathway, then there are two options. The first one is that if we ask them to investigate a specific proposal, then the council is going to develop a reorganization proposal, and we give that to the commission that they are going to investigate. So this is the first option. And the second one, that we are not going to give them any specific proposal, just the problems and the matters, issues or opportunities that they need to investigate. For example, this rapid and uneven population growth, what it means for the city. And then they need to develop a local board reorganization proposal.
May I just add as well? We're not at this stage. We don't have a model that we're looking at in terms of putting forward to the local government commission. The local board engagement will help us to identify issues and opportunities that then become part of the package that we might present to the local government commission. So we at this stage are starting with a blank sheet of paper, trying to understand what issues might there be in certain areas, and we know there are some that came through in the last representation review and reorg. For example, areas like Franklin and Drury, what do we do with Drury? And it could be that those will come through that local board engagement, and that then gives us a sense of what we want the local government commission to investigate. So that will be the package that we'd need to agree with you in March, once we've heard back from local boards and we've understood what those opportunities and issues might be that we need to be addressing.
And my final question, sorry, Chair, is will you have enough time to do all of that? I'm mindful we're shutting down pretty much today. Local boards have pretty much already shut down, and they don't have their first business meeting till well into February, and you will want to have something prepared for us by March. Is that enough time?
The deadlines are tight, but feasible, we think.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Gillen, please.
Thank you. Just remind me, please. So last term, the Joint Governance Working Party recommended proceeding with both reorganisation and representation. And it was the governing body that chose not to proceed with the reorganisation at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
And is it correct then that because we weren't doing both of them, we weren't able to actually have the flexibility to make the change that may have been needed to happen because the representation only allows for minor changes for the local, I'm thinking of the local boards here, like minor changes for local board boundaries, whereas the reorganisation that allows you to actually make bigger changes, which then can align with any ward changes, because that's also part of legislation, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so it may be that what aggrieves the mayor that there wasn't much of that came out of the process last time, maybe because the governing body chose not to do the reorganisation review last time.
We were constrained, obviously the representation review allowed us to make some small changes. When we were looking at the local board reorganisation last time, we were looking really at the amalgamation of boards. We weren't looking at more significant changes. So if there are significant changes or more greater boundary movements that we might think are needed, that's the opportunity that the local board reorganisation gives us.
Yeah, because representation review only allows very minor changes to local board boundaries, yes. And so your recommendation would be that if we proceed with both reorganisation and representation sort of concurrently or one after the other, and also that it is done by the Local Government Commission to sort of remove that political element and have an independent look at it. That's your recommendation?
I think that...
Our current position is that the Local Government Commission gives us the independence, but that's the decision for March. So that's partly what we're asking the local boards for their feedback on as well. So that's still to be kind of worked through based on that kind of early engagement.
And the Local Government Commission is happy to proceed with this work? They have the capacity to do so?
Yes, they have confirmed that they do have the capacity to do that,
Okay.
and the legal requirement as well to do that.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fletcher, please.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Before I commence my questions, I would like to acknowledge Warwick, who has been part of local government in various forms for over 45 years. And I think more than anybody else, he has impressed on all of us the importance of democracy and good governance. So I think we all want to really wish him well in his retirement. And I'm going to put a question directly to him, drawing from his experience. Lotu has touched already on the issues around population growth and with, structural driver for this. My question is more, and I'd like Warwick to answer it if he would please, given that with the mayoral-led CCO reforms, our local boards, it's a slightly different proposition to last time because they are going to be undertaking a lot more responsibility than previously they have done. So more than any other time, I, for one, feel that we do need to actually engage in this and really understand, in terms of reorganisation, what we're wanting from our local boards and how they might function. I wonder if you'd like to comment on that in light of the fact that CCO reforms will place a much greater burden, if you like, or responsibility in terms of their operational functionality. So would you comment, Warwick, please?
Thank you for that, Councillor Fletcher, and thank you for your kind words. We have been wondering about, for example, the transport governance reforms, and we do acknowledge that one option is to say, well, we need to consider these as we go along with a reorganisation development. And the other option is to say, well, let's perhaps defer the reorganisation development until we've got learnings out of the transport governance reforms. But pertinent to all of that is some local board boundaries run along the centre of roads. Is that an issue? I don't know. Another scenario is that, say, a local board has the power to establish speed limits or bus lanes, and they need to make a decision about a road which crosses a boundary into another local board. Are there any issues arising from that? So these are learnings that we might become more educated about as we go along. But yes, there will be definitely some implications there.
This has been perplexing me for some time, where I have an interest in transport, and it has struck me that if we were to undertake the work, it would be better Auckland Council-led rather than local government commission-led, because we have a better appreciation of what we're trying to achieve with CCO reforms. Do you see a problem if the council were to be the lead on that reorganisation, or what would your advice be on that matter?
It is, I think what we found in the previous term was that it's difficult for current elected members to make decisions about their local boards and about their areas that they've already got a stake in. And there's an argument that perhaps an independent body ought to make those decisions. And I guess that's why we're bringing it to you anyway. It's your decision as to which is the best path to go down. But certainly I think our learnings last term was that it's very difficult for current members to make those decisions.
Is that because in practice, while we are regional councillors, we're elected from wards? Are you suggesting that perhaps slightly skews one's thinking?
At the end of the day, every member has to do what they think is best in terms of their own communities. And every member sitting around this table will be very cognizant of their own wards and the local boards that they relate to, even though that they're meant to be making decisions in the best interests of the whole region.
Again, thank you for everything you've done for respective councils over the years, and we really wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you for that, Warwick. We did find them very hard to make decisions about themselves and their own longevity. Turkeys and Christmas sort of came to mind in that one. Councillor Newman.
Good morning, and look, firstly, thank you, Rika, for the report, and I can see the detail that you have gone to, and I'm very impressed with the work that you're leading and acknowledging you and Carol, and also to acknowledge my retiring constituent, Warwick McNaughton. Warwick, all the best for your retirement, and I commend you on the representation arrangements of the ward where you live. My questions are, I'm trying to get the sense of the scope of the detail of a proposal that we need to formulate for that March decision, and the consequences if the Local Government Commission comes back with a series of recommendations, not all of which we accept. So can you just give me some clarity around that and the amount of time that will need to be given to try to address those two things, part by part?
Firstly, we are going to, if today the governing body agrees and to do a local board feedback, we are going to ask 3 questions. We would like to ask 3 questions from the local boards. First, to provide feedback on those matters and problems or opportunities that they face, and in their view, a local board viewer could consider, and that would help to promote good local government. So that's just like an open question, what problems they face. And the second and the third question would be if they support a local board reorganization, and if they do, then which pathway would they support? So a major part of the March report would be based on the feedback from the local boards, and we would analyze in depth the benefits of a potential local board reorganization. And yeah.
Can I just add, while we might hand responsibility for making the decision to the Local Government Commission, the decision would need to take on board local board feedback, community feedback, governing body feedback. No decision would be made without that support, and that was very clear when we did the local board reorganisation last time, is that we need those affected communities to be in support of any of those changes that come through. So this is not going to be a decision that's made behind closed doors without input, without active engagement of the governing body, of local boards, of the community. So that's just something to bear in mind. But the decision, if we hand over responsibility to the Local Government Commission, they make the decision, but it's based on our feedback.
And I guess because I don't have a problem asking the local boards for their suggestions today, but it does come back to what Councillor Foley said as to what happens in the February-March round to try and not only identify what the local boards think, but also the communities from which those boards represent, and how we sort of get that all, filtered through. That's a pretty constrained time frame.
We're not. So we're just to reiterate, we wouldn't be running a community engagement exercise. What we're doing is having a first conversation with local boards to get their initial thoughts that would form a proposal that then either goes to Local Government Commission or goes into what does the council wish to do to take this further. This is the start of the process. It wouldn't be the complete process. There'd need to be a lot more engagement during that period.
And the final question I had through you, Chair, for me, I got some ideas as to what I think the representation arrangements ought to be, but I also want to have an input at the back end, because there's some things that I definitely don't want to see. So how can I sort of reserve my ability to have a contribution on that at the back end?
So the March decision would help us to identify what is it that we're asking either the Local Government Commission to do on our behalf or for us to explore further. And as I say, there will be an engagement plan that will sit alongside that. And we've got a sense of that from Local Government Commission already, haven't we?
One thing that the Local Government Commission staff has told us that the reason that for the time frame that they've proposed is so that a representation review could follow a local board reorganisation. The thinking is that if there's a local board reorganisation, then there will be local board boundaries that will get out of whack with ward boundaries. And so it needs to be followed by a representation review in order to look at alignment.
Deputy Mayor Simpson, please.
Oh, thank you. And again, thanks, Warwick. You've got a lot of knowledge you're taking, walking away with, so thank you for your years of service. Look, what are the actual criteria? Is it a complete clean slate that they've got, or are we able to guide what will happen to any degree?
There are several factors and objectives that the local government commission or local board reorganization must consider. So there are benefits and likelihood of achieving, so like democratic decision-making on behalf of communities, if it's delivering the purpose of local government, efficiencies and cost savings, local boards having sufficient resources, effective response to community needs, better alignment with communities of interest, and other considerations like financial impacts, disruption, opportunity costs, risks and consequences. So there are a lot of factors and requirements that need to be met by legislation.
Thank you. And it's possible that we'll end up with more, we could end up with more local boards than we've got, isn't it? There's no same or less.
Again, this comes down to the problem definition that we give to the Local Government Commission. So if we go to the Local Government Commission and say, ideally, we don't wish to have any more local boards, or we're open to that, that would really be part of that conversation in March. So back to your first comment around whether we start with this clean sheet of paper, we aren't looking at absolutely, starting from scratch. I think we'd be asking for them. It could be that we decide these local boards feel that there's an opportunity in this area. We want the Local Government Commission to just target that area. Or we might say, here are the number of issues that have been raised from all of the local boards. We want you to look at these particular things. So it really comes back to that problem definition. So the conversation with local boards will lead into that and help us to shape what that might be.
And my final question is, it's not just numbers, therefore, and locations. Are they looking at responsibilities and the split between governing body and local boards of what we do, or is just basically numbers and numbers and locations?
Basically the structure, yeah.
Councillor Watson, please.
With the Local Government Commission-led option 2, it says there's possible reorganisation options, so plural. So if we go ahead with this, we're in a position to put out a couple of options then? It doesn't just have to be one that we prefer?
With the Local Government Commission-led processes, there are two processes. So one process is that the council makes a proposal and asks the Local Government Commission to investigate it. And the other process is one where the council simply requests the Local Government Commission to conduct an investigation, but the legislation requires that in the case of an investigation request, a description of the matter, issue, problem or opportunity to be investigated. So we're saying to the Local Government Commission, these are the issues that have arisen, and they have actually identified some of those issues in their recent representation review determination. And so the intention is that at your March meeting there would be a draft of the document that would be presented to the Local Government Commission, which outlines the issues, matters, problems and opportunities that have been identified, so that the decisions that the Local Government Commission makes ultimately should address those matters that we identify.
The findings of the Royal Commission are referenced, links to them anyway in a few places in this report. And when you look at some of those links and what was proposed by the Royal Commission back in 2009, where you had this notion of 6 councils essentially, 6 elected councils, 4 urban, 2 rural, and around Rodney, North Shore, Waitakere, Auckland, Manukau and Franklin, and then some exceptions for community boards for Great Barrier and Waiheke. So my sort of big picture question is, in this reorganisation exercise, what's the ability to come up with a proposal that essentially moves away even from the kind of concept of a local board, but where you maybe have, whatever number of entities greatly reduced, 6, 7 or whatever, but with the people that are on there essentially, full-time or councillors, as was envisaged back with the Royal Commission. So what's the ability to come up with some really quite meaningful reorganisation other than playing around with the deck chairs of the, 15 local boards or 16 or whatever? We actually have stronger full-time roles with X number of councils or whatever you choose to call them. Obviously, I think councils would be appropriate. So what's the ability in this process to put something like that up?
Thank you, Councillor. The question was asked before about about the clean slate, and I think the answer to that is relevant here. It's a clean slate in one sense and not a clean slate in another sense. So the thing that the legislation provides certain criteria that the Local Government Commission must address when it's developing something like that. But there is no minimum number or maximum number of local boards. So in that sense, it's a clean slate. But whatever the Local Government Commission decides must be a suitable arrangement to address all of the issues that we send to them and all of the objectives that they're required to consider when developing a reorganisation plan. So it's open, but there are some parameters.
Well, I'm taking that actually is, you could frame the various criteria to make that possible then in terms of the request. Yes, okay. All right. Yeah, so I guess just the final question then is and you've recommended this way forward with the local government led. We all know what happened with the super city, but I guess that was a political decision. I guess what's the benefits then for sort of in part anyway, significant part, withdrawing the various players who may or may not have kind of conflicts of interest or views that are more motivated by their own standing? You think that opening up to the Commission to be the decision maker will be preferable in these circumstances as opposed to coming back to any politicians, local or national?
Yeah, that will be a decision to make in March if we're reporting back. But there's pros and cons to that. An independent body doesn't have so much of a stake in the decision being made. On the other hand, you people know your communities better than they do.
Questions?
Oh, sorry, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment about your second to last question, Councillor. There is and it was referenced earlier, there's a work stream through the transport reform work that clearly goes to the decision allocation between governing body and local boards. There's no doubt there'll be a material change in the workload for local boards coming out of that, and that will lead to some consideration of the basis on which the Remuneration Authority sets REM and whether we see them as, slightly bigger part-time jobs or what have you. We'll be coming back to you in the new year to discuss that, because it starts with your decision around the allocation of responsibilities between regional and local.
Councillor Fully, want another crack?
Just one more question. If we do go down this path, I mean, I know this might be premature. But if we do go down this path, will the Local Government Commission's recommendations be binding on us?
Yes,
Kia ora, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. I'm quite surprised that the paper doesn't mention the fact that the government have just wiped out regional councils. And so that it seems to me that there is a fourth option. It says here the only way is to go through the local government, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the government can just make a decision about local boards. More, less, none, just like that. So there's a fourth way, perhaps really right in the middle of a discussion over a possible city deal. I mean, we could talk to the local government and say, this is what we want. So I think before we find out what the local boards want, I'd be interested to know what the view around the table here is. We are the council, this is the governing body, it's the group that we talk to the government with. No one's asked me, or possibly no one's asked any of us, are we happy with more, less, or none? And so I think that before we do anything about asking the local boards, we should ask the council how we feel about it. Because if you ask local boards, they feel terrific about it. That's what we found out last time. Mr. Gilman and I sat through long meetings trying to reduce the number and found that most of them are actually quite happy where they are. In fact, Howick wanted even more people to do the work. And so, which was counterintuitive, I have to say. So, how would we go about finding out everybody around here, first of all, what we think? And then maybe we just go and ask the Minister of Local Government. Because I've been through a process to try and have another council changed, and we had something like 90% public support for what we were put forward, and months later, none of that happened. It disappeared into Wellington, and a huge sum of money went down the lavatory, and hours of talk. And we did that last year. We talked ourselves to death, and we ultimately didn't get ourselves right. So how do we go about that? Can we include that? There has to be an option just to talk to the Minister of Local Government. And how do you know what we want? How do we know what we want? I bet there's 21 different answers around the table here, but is there a consensus? Is everyone mad about it as it were? There are a group of us that have come out of local body land, and some of us who've flown over it and avoided it. I don't know how we are. So I think you've got a step ahead of yourselves. We should ask ourselves first before we ask anybody else. What's your answer to that?
Your Worship, the March report will obviously be asking for governing body perspective on local board and whether or not we need to do a reorganisation. So this report today is really just to help us to get the local board feedback to help inform your decision in March. So we are obviously very, very keen to seek governing body views on whether or not we go ahead with anything, and what, if so, what scale, whether it's a...
But you're offering us the option of going to, not doing that ahead of it. And I'm thinking that we should ask ourselves first. We are the body that will make a decision as to whether to go ahead or not. And I'm sure there's a range here. I have to say that my thing is I wouldn't waste an ounce of time on this. If I was going to do anything about it and we had a good, strong view, I'd just go and see the Minister. Because it's better, cheaper, faster. Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I think you are anticipating what I was actually hoping to have put up by way of an amendment at the appropriate time, because I feel that local boards don't yet know in detail what is going to be required out of the transport reform, hence the questions that I posed. And I feel that the brief that we set ourselves for what we expect needs to be determined. It can't be done today, but there needs to be a body of work that's undertaken to be very clear about where the respective local board and governing body partnership might work going into the future with the Merrill-led CCO proposals.
Are we
That's a
still
good
asking
point.
questions, or we're in debate,
Uh,
Chair? Are we in debate now, Chair, making comments, or are we still on questions?
We're not quite there because basically these are
Councillor
questions
Fully,
that
mine
we've-
was a question, and it was sort of being asked in a reverse rather way, but I would appreciate if the staff could, and Warwick, drawing on his experience, could comment on that.
Yeah, me too. Is it worthwhile, is it an option just talking to the minister? It seems to work really well with regional councils. Why wouldn't that be in here?
An attempt at a response. One response is to say that as the staff, we're reporting to you the processes that are open to us under the legislation. In terms of going direct to a minister, as I understand the process, it involves cabinet papers, then a draft bill, and then it goes to a select committee and so on, and then it's ultimately enacted into legislation. I know of no other situation where the number of local government entities is actually hardwired into legislation. Parliament usually leaves it up to a process and does not set the actual number of entities, but it might be possible.
Well, I think that the recent result over the regional councils has questioned that whole thinking process. That didn't go through those processes, it just arrived, and there was very little input from the people who were affected by it. So it definitely is a fourth option, even if it's a bit messy. So we shouldn't ignore that. We should know about it, even if it's new. Even in New Zealand, a new thing can happen now and again. Councillor Fully has have a new question.
Oh, no, sorry, Chair, I was just saying that I'd second it.
I'll
I'd
be-
second the recommendation.
Mr Mayor, I'll be moving that.
Moved and seconded by Gillen and Fully. I think you're forming a team. Great. Councillor Filipina has a round-up for your attention there, Warwick. So don't put your book.
Ata mari he mana ngā mihi ki a koe, thank you. Warwick, standing orders is something that I've learnt when I first got into council, straight into a councillor's role. And you were responsible for me learning the standing orders. And there's a few people here don't like the fact that I use the standing orders, but it's your fault that I do. Warwick, I personally want to acknowledge you. I asked the governance manager if I could get the permission from the chair. That's in the standing orders, so then while you're sitting there, instead of me looking at you behind me. So I've asked that, and that was given. Warwick, I have a lot of respect for you. I wish you well. I also, with your lovely wife Joanna, your children. For those that don't know, around this table, 2003 I ended up becoming a councillor, and during not only that, there were Warwick, I sought so much advice from you, and you have my utmost respect. You are a humble person, very professional, as we've just seen, but more, first and foremost, you're a family man. For those that around the table don't know, but his son, Kyle, documented a journey of his and his son, your grandson, in being initiated into one of the tribes in Papua New Guinea. His wife is from Papua New Guinea. So the other one, I think, and with Lotu, is he directed the legend of Baron To'oa, and Kyle was there. So look, Warwick, I had the pleasure in telling everybody that I knew his father. They didn't care, but I did. So look, Warwick, I just wanted to humbly say thank you so much for all your work over the years. And Christine mentioned the history that you have, but look, just from my perspective, thank you so much. I will be seeing Sir Barry Curtis in the next week in a bit we try and catch up every sort of couple of weeks. So I'll let you know when we go and see him, and it'll be great if you could come along with myself and also with Mike and the others. So just thank you so much, Warwick. Kia ora.
We're going to move into comments now. Please retire. Thank you very much for your inputs. And in your case, please definitely retire. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern here is an underlying assumption that I pick up in terms of numbers of local boards, that less is better and bigger is better, and I don't think that's right in terms of the democratic quality of our organisation. So, and you can see that in the report where it talks about status quo, 21 local boards, then alignment with wards, 15 local boards, and then a curious comment here, Royal Commission plus Islands, 13 local boards. There were no local boards in the scheme proposed by the Royal Commission at all. There was the governing body, a regional entity, strategic, with full ultimate powers in terms of rating and everything else, but there were also 6 what they called local councils, and these were not boards. These were, if you like, governed by council laws. As Councillor Watson pointed out, 4 covering the urban area of the region and 2 covering the rural area of the region. And then in the 3rd tier, there were 2 community boards for Great Barrier, Aotea Great Barrier and Waiheke Islands, plus another community board for the city centre and waterfront. Now, that's not 13 local boards, but I think the assumption here is, the intent is, the logic is, the less boards there are, the better it is. It's not what I hear from the public. In fact, I don't have any complaints. I mean, all of us get complaints all the time. I'm actually trying to address you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I'm very interested in your analysis of the Royal Commission and wonder why we didn't just stick with them.
And so we're focusing here on the local boards, but I think Councillor Watson talked about, is it deck chairs on the Titanic? Of course, the Titanic would have to be the Auckland Council, really, but the deck chairs are the local boards. Now, rearranging them, I don't think it's going to be that helpful or that democratic. Given what I was saying, I don't get any complaints about the number of local boards. I get an enormous amount of complaints about what AT is doing, what the council is doing, and so on. And we know that we have a problem with our relationship with our ratepayers, the people who pay for us, the people who we represent, because only 29.3% of eligible voters bothered to vote in the recent elections. And I do think we need to reflect on that. If we're going to talk about the Royal Commission, it would be interesting to see how far we can go within the bounds of the Auckland Council Local Government Amendment Act 2009, which I think wouldn't be that much at all in changing things, except the number of local boards. However, it would be also interesting to get a considered briefing of what the Royal Commission wanted, and then to take that into account, not a superficial, if you like, interpretation of the Royal Commission talking about 13 local boards. It never ever talked about 13 local boards. The Royal Commission's approach was radically different in terms of organisation. And so, and I have to say, with the passing of time, looks better every time I review it. But the thing is, let's have a good look at what the Royal Commission wanted. And in terms of the Local Government Commission or the Auckland Council, I would have to say, if we're going to get any organisation to review the local boards, it really should be the Local Government Commission, because the Local Government Commission, if you recall, had a look at our recent representation review and overturned a key part of it in line with what the public wanted. And I think that was a very wise decision. So let's get all the facts, let's have workshops on this and think it through. And if we can take this opportunity to actually improve the whole Auckland Council, not just change local boards or think about it, come up with some ideas, and then we can take these ideas, as you're saying, Mr. Mayor, to the Minister of Local Government. And I would say that in the coming year, the Minister of Local Government will be interested in any good ideas that may be popular with the public. So thank you very much.
Well said, Councillor. Councillor Patterson-Hamlin, please.
Kia ora, and I'll acknowledge Warwick as well and just say that my mind is slightly spinning at the moment because Kyle McNaughton is married to my first cousin, Kerry, and so it is my blood relation that went through that initiation thing. So we're cousins, and congratulations. And also the Legion of Barontoa starred faux local board deputy chairperson Fasitoa Mosa, so I'll just acknowledge that too. My point on what this is about is that I think it's tempting to think of local boards a bit like electorates, but and so therefore can sort of shift around depending on what population does. But I think in reality they function much more akin to a city council like Dunedin or Palmerston North, to give some kind of size relevant examples. And over the past 15 years, particularly in info, I think a lot has happened in local boards in terms of identity building. What I've witnessed has led to sort of this previously unknown sense of belonging, and in the case of Whau, a connection to the awa that gives it its name that's been really significant, particularly for the younger generation coming through. Auckland's kind of too large and sprawling, I think, to exist without these sub-identities being really important, and I think that has a bearing on our democracy as well as the well-being of our citizens. But I will acknowledge, of course, that experience is not going to be the case necessarily for all 21 local board areas. And so I don't think it's bad practice to check in with the local boards and check in with the structure from time to time. Absolutely acknowledge as well the CCO reforms boundaries down roads, for example, probably should be looked at. And so I'll vote for this consultation to take place, but I do just want to say that to progress any reorganisation, I think we need to see very, very clear reasons for any change, and that we should take them really seriously and consider the flow-on impacts for things like people's identity. And I'd ask that if this mahi progresses, it's done with caution, and that it looks at local boards, their function, their identities holistically, and not purely as numbers on a page. And I have faith that the team would do that, but I do just want to quickly make that point. And to shout out to Kyle McNaughton and Kerry Wakia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll have Councillor Baker.
So mindful of what we're deciding here, I support A and B, and look forward to the conversations we've been having today in March. because I think it's incredibly important as we take a hammer to our CCOs to gain better and more efficient governance, that we look at ourselves as well and the entire governance spectre of council, just to have some credibility in terms of that. So I'll be supporting the recommendations, and just in terms of Warwick, or the Warrigal, as he is known, 45 years in council all up, longer than some of us around this table, not me obviously. I was 15, yeah, Desley. I was 15 when he started in council, so, Warwick, thank you, as Alf said, and I just hope like hell you are not judging your success on Alf's knowledge of standing orders. So thank you, mate, and enjoy your retirement.
Watson, please.
Yeah, it is an important matter, and it is an opportunity, and it's a kind of contradictory opportunity, because as much as criticisms made of the number of local boards and you know how small they are, in most instances the representation per ratepayers is actually lower than it was under the legacy council. So if you go and look at different parts, that there actually were, in the older council, there was more people elected per the various subdivisions than there are under the local boards. So the local boards in themselves actually represent quite big areas, you know. So that's one side. The other side is that in terms of the public perception, and indeed I think, you know, without really speaking for too many local board people, but certainly within themselves, they would feel that their role could be greater, could be more significant, and that would help with the public, and the CEO's already alluded to the work that's going on there that's going to, in some shape or form, bring that about. So we've been doing this gig for 15 years now, which is a long time. That's 5 terms of council, and you know, I think it would be the eternal optimist that would say that the blueprint for the local boards is one that's you know, resonated with the public, or resonated even with the local board people themselves. So this is an opportunity. When I personally look at that Royal Commission recommendation, and you know, without getting into the specifics of it, that would seem to me to be a more appealing way forward in terms of lifting the stature of the local councils, because I don't think local boards would be appropriate terminology, but you know, that's maybe semantics. Lifting the profile of of those local boards / councils, that would resonate more with the communities, and would, along with the changes that are occurring, have more meaningful work to employ full-time appointees. Now, whether that I think it'll resonate with the public, and I, from what I've heard anecdotally, not from too many people, it might even appeal to various local board members. It might not, I don't know. But I think it's too good an opportunity to miss, because this supercity structure that was imposed, you know, without public consultation, without us having a say, if this is a chance to make it a bit better, then we need to take it, because the line of travel in terms of voter turnout, of recognition, I don't know about you, every election you go out, and it's clear, big swathes of people, they have no idea what ward they're in, what even local board they're in. It just hasn't grabbed. They certainly know where North Shore was, they knew where Rodney was, and they had some sense of that. So we have lost that. I think there's a chance here maybe to get that back, if that's indeed what the public and you know, what people display a support for. So I think it's a good opportunity to support.
Councillor Foley, you're in great voice this morning.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, originally I wasn't in favour of, I'm not in favour of the reduction of the local boards, but this is something different, I think. And I'm quite interested in the idea of hearing from the Local Government Commission, and I'd be really keen to have a Local Government Commission-led investigation, because like lots of people have said, you know, our city has grown by leaps and bounds, and it has changed in many, many ways. And one of the key purposes, of course, of local government is that reflection of our communities of interest and making sure that representation is correct for all of our communities across the city. We're not just a super city, we're a super diverse city. So maybe we do need more local boards, maybe we do need more subdivisions, maybe we do need, you know, the sort of local councils like Councillor Watson and Councillor Lee have talked about. But I think it would be good to leave those decisions up to a non-political or apolitical or, you know, truly objective investigation led by the Local Government Commission. I'm not in favour of the 21 of us making that decision of how it should look in terms of the number of the local boards. We all know the difficult job that local boards do with the limited resources that we give them. And I still think, although we are how many years in, 15 years into this super city, we're still sort of bedding in, we still are finding our feet as a super city. So that's the reason why I'm supporting this. I think we should hear from our local boards, and I'm really mindful that we've got such a small time frame to do that. So I'm supporting this to go out and hear from our local boards. Let's get some feedback from them. Let's let our team here do their job and come back with a proposal for us to make a decision on in March. And then let's see where we go from there. Kia ora. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Burns, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was enjoying what the Mayor and Councillor John Watson were saying about the less is best approach, not in the sense of council as local boards, but I'm a big believer of quality over quantity. And what I mean by that is I've talked about this for 6 years, and it's very difficult to draw good people in for part-time income and part-time hours. What sort of governance do you expect from that? Who are the people as Aucklanders need to be able to make those decisions? And the reality is it's very difficult for a local board member to live off 47k or whatever that amount is. So quantity over quality, quality over quantity, I think is a good focus. I'm excited for that conversations in March to see not reducing local boards, but potentially less people, but longer hours and more focused portfolios. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we seem to be having a workshop here, which is fair enough. Councillor Short.
Thank you. I really believe that this needs to be completely independent, and I'm not anti-local board, don't get me wrong. I think they serve their own purposes. But from my own experiences last term, it was really difficult for members to remove themselves from the decision making when we were giving feedback on this. A lot of the comments that were thrown around were purely self-interest, and they really, really struggled to kind of think outside the box and the greater good that this could potentially serve. So I might also just agree with my colleague here, John Watson, that a lot of people actually have no idea what local boards do, who they are, and actually, quite frankly, I think a lot of people don't really know what we do. So I think that potentially making the local board numbers smaller, like Watson, well, I don't know if you really said that, but anyway, lifting the profile of members and what we do is exactly what we need to do, and our voter turnout is an example of this. We have poopy numbers, excuse my language, Mayor, but the voter turnout is horrible. And I think we have too many elected members, we have too many people saying something about something or other, and it is really difficult to get direction going the way that it needs to do with so many people having a say in it. And I'm not saying that I'm, what's the word I'm looking for? Anti-democracy. Anyway, both my local boards have already raised their thoughts around this, and I know that this has kind of been signalled to them. One local board is really open for this to be an independently run process, whilst my other chair reckons we should just get rid of governing body altogether. So I was like, Either way, I completely also agree with my colleague Beau, quality over quantity. And I hope that local boards can see the good in this and go with an independently led process.
Councillor Bartley, please.
Thank you. Happy to support this. I agree with having an independent local government commission look at this as opposed to us and elected members, because, you know, there's been comments made in the public about we've got too many local boards, what do they do? So it will be hard for us not to be personally involved in it. So I'm glad for it to be at arm's length. We are a growing population, and I would support this in the hope that it doesn't mean a reduction in local boards, because we have a lot of meshing going on which doesn't really make sense with our subdivisions. So I'm keen for that to be looked at and picked up. I do agree, people still don't know what local boards do. People know what councillors do because we've got councillor on our name, and we're the ones that get tagged, I would argue, more than local board members on social media when something goes wrong. I would hope that we get some more clarity around the transport reform, around who's responsible for what, because it will be important when it comes to blame in the community. I think it will be also good to look at the super city. Has it actually benefited Auckland or not? Because some parts you see you've just lost their identity, like West Auckland, South or Monaco, and really it was supposed to achieve regional consistency. It probably has, but at the cost of different areas losing their identity. And I also believe this lack of engagement in elections is related to all this confusion about local boards, councillors, and people not seeing the relevance of us. So I hope this goes some way to achieving that. Thank you.
They might just be happy with us. Councillor Winiata.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo Councillor Short and Councillor Burns, but it does come with be careful what you wish for. Certainly I'm in favour of more efficiency, and if it's cheaper to run a local board because there is less people who are more efficient, then by all means bring it on. But yeah, I guess a number of us would be very wary of people on our local boards over the years who just turn up and do nothing, don't attend anything, they're whispers in the wind. And that's always a danger regardless of what you try and entice people to get paid. I'm aware that a lot of people, certainly chairs I'm aware of, have treated the chair of the local board role, which should be, well, supposed to be full-time, as a part-time role as well. So how engaged are they in their community? And it goes to show how little respect or awareness the community has, and that's reflected with such a low voter turnout. We certainly during the campaigns and election period, people say, you know, we want our voice to be heard, but when we go through consultation, they're nowhere to be seen, and the numbers are even worse than the election. So trying to get the community engaged is always going to be an effort unless the local boards are actually engaged in the community, which many aren't. So I remember when the Manukau City Council was around, you know, they were all about services. Mowing the berms, everything was done. Didn't really feel like there were any dark, dingy areas to walk through in Manarewa because it was so well lit and clear. And now we're talking about removing services. And, you know, never at any time in the council's history or Auckland's history we've been getting more through rates and income through assets. So there's a lot of things to unpack around this. If it comes up for question, certainly I'm interested in engaging this and I would support this, but we do need to be aware of the dangers that come with this being an election, those popular people that are very happy to get the role and not do the work. The community deserves more than that. We also have to look at, you know, what the outcomes for the communities are. I mentioned in my inauguration speech, my opening address, that we're in the smiles business. I remember Manarewa being it had its challenges, but it was a very happy community because we had all the services, everything was done. It's very backwards to that now. Community groups are struggling. Community houses in danger of closing down just because they're needed for other things, and it's harder to come by a lot of services. So I'm open to any discussion around local boards, but I do implore that if local boards are serious about being taken seriously, then they have to take the job seriously as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Newman.
I'm just wanting to bring it back to the recommendations, which I'm happy to support, but I would foreshadow that probably what you will get if you're going to go and seek the local board feedback, what you'll get is the local board feedback that we got last time in a very recent past, which is that things are going great, don't touch us type thing. I think that we got that from every local board, almost every local board. So, in getting that feedback, the question's going to be, well, what do you do with that feedback in March? Because it may well be that around this table there's a lot of people who disagree with that feedback, just as quite a few people disagreed with that feedback last time they got it. I'm not sure that I want to see a wholesale change in the local board space. Certainly if there are some local boards that want to volunteer an amalgamation, I'm actually quite happy if there are boards that want to do that. There are some clearly vexed challenges because of population movements. There do need to be some boundary changes. What I'm interested in March, and I'm quite interested in what the local boards do tell us, although I suspect I know what they're going to say, but when that feedback does come back, it will be I'm not sure I'm a clean slate person for the Local Government Commission, or whether I want to set the context for the things that I'm looking for from it, because I'm just not sure how far this reform can go if we don't have significant support from, and remembering the local boards are our joint governance partners here. People can come to the governing body, people do go to the local boards too, and I do think that, I don't want to be discursive to the local boards. This process has to be respectful of them and all members of it. We will have to, if there is going to be a reorganisation, the local boards and their views will have to be incorporated, even if we don't like what we hear from them. And it may well be that the final outcome is not that different to what we currently have, or no change at all. That's still a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you for that, reminding us what is the problem we're trying to fix here. I don't know what it is myself, but Councillor Gillen may well explain that to me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was actually about to do a point of order for not coming to me first as the mover of this. However, I looked at our standing orders and you don't need to come to the mover first, which is a bit odd and maybe something we need to look at, because now I get to speak and then I also get to give myself a right of reply. I just wanted to note that at the beginning of this meeting, you mentioned that the chair of the Devonport Takapuna Local Board wasn't here to speak, but I've got the email trail where they're actually denied being able to speak today, so maybe we could look at that. But I'm aware that they were intending on coming and speaking in favour of allowing local boards to have another say on this. Members, it may seem that we only just went through this process recently, but actually the governing body chose not to do the reorganisation part, and we have convoluted two pieces of legislation that don't fit together properly, so that's why it's best to do the reorganisation and the representation sort of at the same time, or one after the other, perhaps with one round of consultation with the public. So look, I am in favour of us doing this properly this time. It has actually been 15 years of the Super City without us doing a reorganisation review. There are things in that which we couldn't do just under the representation review that we went through previously, particularly in making substantial changes to local board boundaries. We have issues with some ward boundaries, particularly on the North Shore, between North Shore Ward and Albany Ward, because the Albany Ward is growing so fast that we are now in breach of the plus or minus 10% population rule. That needs to change, and as part of the determination of the local governing commission that we actually do need to address that. The problem is if we had addressed it on its own as part of the representation review, the boundary would have been out of whack with the local board boundaries. We actually need to do the reorganisation as well to get the local board boundaries right and then have the wards right as well and make sure they match wherever possible. So so I'm in favour of us doing both of these. The Local Government Commission has also pointed out that the governing body was happy to make a number of accept a number of non-compliances across the region, including in subdivisions. So these are things we actually need to look at as well. We are in breach of the rules, and although we can accept those breaches, we can't just keep accepting those breaches and keep pushing this out and pushing this out. We actually need to address this properly. And the best way to do that is to get the Local Government Commission to have a look at it independently, across the board, look at absolutely everything. So I'm in favour of what the officers were mentioning about a clean slate, and having a proper, good, thorough look at all of this. And I'll just read out something from the determination that throughout this determination, we've observed that the continued scale of development and population growth in Auckland is likely to impact on the shape and scale of communities of interest and to the extent to which electoral areas comply with the plus or minus 10% rule. And then they go on to advise things that we need to be looking at. And so this isn't about whether we want less local boards, not about whether we want more local boards or less or more councillors and that, but we do need to, after 15 years of the super city, need to have another look at what we have and whether it's working properly and is actually compliant with the law. I note the Mayor mentioned earlier on that we could go straight to the Minister and ask for some changes. And look, if he wants us to bring back North Shore City, then that's fine, and Richard and I could battle it out for the Mayor of North Shore City. That's one option. Or if he applies what he's done to the other regional councils, then that would actually be to remove the governing body, and perhaps we have a panel of local board chairs come together and we have 21 local board chairs sitting around the table making these decisions. That's another way that it could go. So I am, perhaps we should talk to the Minister, perhaps not, but I think that we do need to be going ahead with these reviews. And the first step, of course, is to hear from the local boards. They may or may not want to do this, but they might also point out some areas of concern that we actually do need to be addressing. And it doesn't have to be a full review that we go through. It could just be that we target certain areas. But either way, let's hear from the local boards and see what they have to say. And I don't need to write a reply. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Turner, the right of clarification.
No, I just wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, I've been listening and I thought we'd done all this last term. I support quality over quantity, and with less quantity, it's easier for people to judge quality. Thank you.
Oh, that was a quality speech, nice and short. Well, Councillor Ferry, as always.
Actually, I wasn't going to speak on this at all, Mayor, but I just wanted to make two quick points. First was that the Joint Governance Working Party did actually spend quite a lot of time looking at various options of how local boards could be reshaped, including a proposal that came from the Mayor's office that had quite a lot of detail. So it's not as if last term, while there was a vote not to proceed further with reorganisation, there was actually quite a lot of work done before governing body chose not to proceed with that, which personally I think was the right decision at the time. I'm not against this. I think it makes sense. What we need to be clear about when we come back in March, and I think it would be useful to ask this question of the local boards, is what they want to achieve out of a reorganisation. Because a reorganisation that looks at big changes is different from some of the arguments I've heard around the table today for why we need to do reorganisation to allow smaller changes around things like, for example, that Otara Papatoetoe boundary, where there's growth, there's the possibility, some of it may need to be in Howick or whatever. There's several different things that are potentially being achieved through this, and I think it's important that in March we're clear about the brief we're putting to the Local Government Commission about that, especially if it's going to be binding and it won't come back to us for a further vote. So that's all I wanted to say. Happy to support the motion. I don't feel like the process last time was a failure or a waste of time at all. The people who put a lot of effort into it, including staff such as Warwick, did a great job, but it was not the political will of this body to proceed further with it, and I don't think that's a failure at all. Thank you.
Right, well, that's a pretty long debate about this, and just this last little thing there, when I was having dinner recently with the then Deputy Prime Minister, he hadn't realised, for instance, that there are 40 MPs in Auckland. There's 2 MPs for each one of you. So, and I don't know what the justification of that is. Possibly we're twice as good. But so with local body reorganisation, we may as well change the whole bloody country while we're at it as well. You'll never get it right. I'm going to put the motion. Does anyone want to call a thingamabob for this one? Record anyone? All those in favour, please say aye. I'll record myself against this. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to something else. Item 8.3. It's the delegation of repleasing the interim and full year council results to the NZX. This is fascinating.